Hi everybody, it's been Horizon to Horizon Cloud for the last 2 weeks, and it's the week before Christmas, so I thought I'd have a quick look back at previous images. Now I started imaging about a year ago properly, maybe about a year and a half ago, and prior to that I was sort of just dabbling in what was going on. So I thought I'd have a quick look back at different images and let's see where I've got to now. So let's kick off. I think this was my first ever image. So this is M51, and there we go. So that's M51. Now this was taken with a Canon 400D unmodified, and I tried to stack some images together and to stretch the image, but interestingly, I mean, you can see the two galaxies interacting. It's blue, as you can see, it's pretty blue, and it's not very good, but you know what, I suppose it's a first attempt. It's good. This is obviously unguided, and it was just using my EQ5 mount. Yeah, okay, so let's see my first Andromeda image. So this was my first ever Andromeda image. Now again, similar setup. I think I was taking something like 20-second exposures, unguided. And I mean, you can see the stacking artifacts on the side as well, but you do see the two galaxies. There's one there and there as well. So yeah, I guess, you know, I suppose as a first attempt it's pretty cool. Of course, I was a bit gobsmacked at this because the first time you actually see an image with satellites going through it, you wonder what on earth they are, and then you suddenly realize, well, there's Andromeda and there's two satellites going through, and of course it's commonplace in astrophotography to see this kind of thing, but that at the time was just, wow, that's amazing. It's actually satellites that you can see. I suppose this is the big one really. Here's Orion, my first go after processing Orion, and you know what, I would have been really pleased with this, and I think although you can see there's loads of red sort of stuff around, I mean, that star is fabulous. That's amazing, that star. I don't know what's going on with that, but again, these were unguided, I think 20 or 30-second exposures, and I must have stacked about 15 minutes worth. I went a bit mad, to be honest. I took this picture of Pleiades, and in GIMP I added some diffraction spikes, and I have no idea how I did that, and they look really awful. I mean, they look pretty terrible, but it is the Pleiades, so that was my first go at Pleiades. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking doing those diffraction spikes. Again, this would have been unguided. You can see the nice sort of egg-shaped stars. One thing I did become reasonably good at was taking pictures of the moon, and although they were not brilliant, these are some of the moon pictures, and you know what, I was just looking back through some of them. Some of them are really good. They're not too bad, and you really do get to see some good details on the moon here, which is great. But I went a bit further than that, and I became quite good at imaging it. So this was all taken with an Altair color camera, and although I probably processed it as monochrome, although you can pull out the color, but there are some really nice pictures here. And I think later on there's one which I did of the moon as a whole, so that's one of the actual whole moon that I did, which I'm quite pleased with. That one's really nice. Now, it was not until I started guiding that I realized the potential here. Now, I took this the other day, and this is basically a DSLR on the ground looking at the telescope as the clouds are rolling over, and in a minute you'll actually see the telescope is tracking nicely, and it demonstrates perfectly why you need to have guiding. So if I pause it there, and you can see all of the stars here, and you can see the scope. So what I'll do, if you'll notice, as I drag this along, you can see the telescope is moving really in sync with the sky, and that's because this little scope that you've got here is fixed on a star, and it's basically pushing the mount around to keep the stars in the imaging scope absolutely circular. And this video, I've been wanting to do this for a while, but you can see really nicely that it actually shows how the scope is tracking the sky really well. But as just a video of the clouds going by, it looks really cool anyway. So you can really see how the scope is slowly tracking round with the sky. So I think it was about a year ago now that I started guiding, and I was still using a Canon 550D, which had been modified, and that was a bit of a game changer for me. And I think I took an image, my second image of Andromeda, so that was my second image of Andromeda, and I also began using PixInsight, which is kind of a game changer in terms of processing software. It's just amazing. So that was my first proper Andromeda image that I took. So let's compare that with my first ever Andromeda, which was this one. So there's Andromeda 1 and here's Andromeda 2. I think I made a bit of progress there, so I'm quite pleased. So I've recently taken another Andromeda, and that was in my previous video, and this was the image from that one. So that's my most recent Andromeda which I've taken, but again it's got quite a lot of noise. I didn't get as many hours as I've wanted on this. I think this was about 4 hours, but you know, it's pretty cool, and I'm pleased with that. My framing isn't very good, and I had to crop it quite tightly because I had some field rotation, because I repositioned the telescope. Yeah, but I've got much more detail, so I think this is a better image, much better image. That's my most recent Andromeda, which I'm pretty pleased with. As soon as I started guiding, I think my imaging improved because you could take much longer exposures. Then I managed to come up with 2 or 3 images in succession. I think this one particular was the Bubble Nebula, and again this is with a Canon 550D, and you can really see the bubble there. And again, I've over processed this, so it's all a bit, it's just a bit blotchy, but that's predominantly because I was kind of crushing the background noise, the blacks a bit, to try and get rid of the noise. So that was the Bubble Nebula, and I also took the Pac-Man Nebula as well, which was this one, which is actually not a bad image. I'm quite pleased with that one. That one's quite nice as well. So this was taken just under a year ago now. So after that, I changed from a Canon 550D to a fan-cooled camera, and quite quickly after that I managed to take a little bit of the California Nebula, which is this one, and because of the focal length of my scope, you can't get the whole of the California Nebula in. You'd need a much shorter focal length, but you do get to see some of the California Nebula, this great big hydrogen alpha signal, the big red signal that you can see here. And then of course galaxies. So we've already spoken about Andromeda, but I absolutely loved M51, and this year with the fan-cooled camera I took a couple of images of M51, which I'm quite pleased with actually. I think these are really nice, and you can see these tiny little fuzzy galaxies on the edges as well, but that's probably my best M51 that I've taken. And I also cropped it as well just to bring it a bit closer, which I really love. I think that's one of my favorite galaxies. What I'd like to do in the new year is take as many hours as I can, because I've learned that the thing that reduces all the noise is to take as many hours as you possibly can. But of course, being in the UK, that's really difficult because we don't get many hours when we can actually do this hobby, because the weather's predominantly really difficult. It doesn't play ball. Other galaxies, M33, again, all of my images are just so noisy, but this is M33. I think that's 2 hours or thereabouts, but I've always wanted to image this one, and it's just beautiful. It's such a beautiful galaxy, it really is. And of course the classic in the plough, which is M101, and it's just, again, it's just the most amazing galaxy, and you've got these little faint galaxies in the background as well. It never ceases to amaze me what you can actually see with a small telescope in your back garden. The other thing which I did over the last year or two was taking some planetary imaging, and I went a bit mad with Venus, and I did this composite image showing how Venus's phase has changed over a period of months. And you can see that, although I didn't quite get the focus right on some of them, but it really demonstrates how the phase of the planet changes over time. And then, of course, there's the classics, which is Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter's just amazing to see because you can see visibly the gas on the surface, and you can see the moons. I hope you can see those on there, but the moon's going round. And of course you can overexpose this just with a mobile phone, and you can visibly see the moons, and that's just incredible to see. And I think the first time I saw this about 2 years ago, I'm still, it's just amazing. It's just amazing to see. And of course the classic Saturn, I kind of, my nemesis is getting good planetary imaging, and I've not been able to achieve the images that I really want to achieve, so I've got to put in some more time to try and improve my planetary imaging as well. So I think the least noisy image I've been able to produce was the Cygnus Wall, and I'm really pleased with this image. It's really clean and the noise level is very low. I didn't have to do much to process it. I could have done a lot more. I made it go wow, just absolutely amazing. This image in particular I'm really pleased with. I really like this one. And of course the classic from earlier this year. Now I'm going to go back and show you my original Orion, so that's my first sort of Orion, and then I'm going to now show you my most recent Orion, which was this one. So I took this one last year, and you can just see the Running Man shape there, and then you can see Orion. Again, I wish I'd got more hours on this because there's so much dust. To do it justice, you have to take a lot of exposures. But yeah, I think that's quite a nice image there. And comparing it with my first one, which is not bad. It's not bad for a first go. So that's kind of my last 2 years of imaging, and I'd really like to improve with my processing and also trying to take as many hours as I possibly can on different images. It makes such a difference to the noise, which I just didn't get before, and also the fact that I'm guiding, and I've got the new mount as well, which is guiding amazingly well. It's really good. I just want to wish everyone a happy Christmas, and thank you all for subscribing, if indeed you have. I really appreciate your support. Have a good Christmas and New Year, and I'll see you in 2022. Take care, everyone.